All right, what's up, guys? If anybody is tuning into this, first of all, I just want to say thank you for tuning in. And second of all, we're going to try to talk about a few things like in the general area or category of shadow work and like the seasonal shift from summer to fall. And although it's been fall for like a month now,
Hmm.
uh, it's starting to feel like actual fall with the colder weather and everything. So kind of like discussing that in more detail and how that relates like in our own personal lives within like the darkness and the seasonal shift and like our associations with all that. So I don't really feel like starting. I'll have Will start just to kind of get the conversation going.
Yeah, so speaking of shadow work, I just recently purchased a journal. It's called a Shadow Work Journal, and it kind of I've just started. I haven't gotten like far into it, but it delves into like prompts of fill in the blank, where they'll ask you a certain question about how you feel in a certain situation or how you experience something in your childhood, just things of that nature. And it's essentially trying, at least its goal is to reveal something, some type of trigger, some type of response emotionally or anxiety that you may have in a particular situation, which is something I'm ultimately trying to understand. I think as we've gotten into the fall and as we're getting closer to the winter, my goal is kind of to go on like an inward path and journey to discover more about myself and why at times I may be a little bit socially distant or not like wanting to put myself out there, and why I may have anxiety in certain moments, why I may be angry in particular situations, like what triggers me essentially, and also just like um, trying to understand my past experiences and how those affect me, delve into my childhood more because that's something I haven't fully done, to be honest. And even my adolescence, like even just trying to reflect upon my past and rather than avoid those feelings or work against them, work with them in my own shadow, my own feelings and emotions and all of that to just better understand myself and know that I'm imperfect and I'm flawed, but that's really just what being a human is because there's so much unknown to this experience. And that's the thing about the fall and winter too, that I would say is fascinating, and just seasons in general. But the fall and winter, it's kind of like the time where you tend to be inside more. It's not as bright and warm out, so you're kind of reflecting and doing more inner work, so to speak. And so that's kind of why that's what I'm focusing on, and a big goal of mine for the upcoming months for sure. So, yeah.
Do you have any like examples of the book that you or like the journal of like things you've written down?
Yeah, so I would say one of them from my childhood, let me try and think of the one that I remember the best. It was like not fully feeling as if I could express myself in a lot of situations. And I had to kind of put on a little bit of an act, and where that stems from. And this is obviously kind of tough to accept sometimes. It's not that I look at my dad a certain way, but um, he wasn't always the most open-minded when it comes to like new ideas or new cultures, so to speak, or perspectives. So like, you almost always had to be this, you had to think this way or be this way, and so sometimes if I had a differing opinion, I felt like it was challenging to really express that around him, and of course, that kind of makes itself present in the real world as well. Um, and so like that's something I'm trying to work with and understand. And I feel like I'm just beginning. Like I'm that's one of the first things that I've realized, and so I'm still trying to like uncover that and go farther into it and even understand even more. But that's the first thing I would say for sure.
How long like are you in this like journal thing like with the prompts like does it
So,
you does it discuss things like other than his childhood?
Yeah, so let me see. To give you an example, you start out and they just basically do an introduction of like what shadow work is and all of that. Um, like they use a lot of examples because the father of shadow work, I don't know if you can even see this, is Carl Jung. So
Mm.
they kind of delve into that and his perception of like ego, self, shadow, and all that. And eventually it gets into, and this is where I was, because like I'm not that far into it, but like fill in the blanks, where they say, I always feel like I'm the blank one. Blank is how I manage to escape. And you fill in the blank, and basically they tell you just do it off of like your first intuition, basically. Um, and then I think what they do after that also is, um, yeah, they do like activities so you can mirror gaze or say affirmations or take a hot shower and just release your thoughts or journal or draw, do activities like that. And then over time, they make you do journals. They'll ask you a specific question, and you'll journal about that in particular. And I could actually, I mean, there's so many, but yeah, it's definitely something that I found it on TikTok. Believe it or not, it's definitely something that I would probably recommend to people because it can help a lot with just understanding your own self and why you may respond in particular situations a certain way. And yeah, so it's called Shadow Work by Keela Shaheen, I believe her name is.
Is it like a half book or a half
Yeah,
journal?
it's mostly journal. So the like I said, the intro is like just introducing you to shadow work, and then it's a lot of like activities. They'll just do activities. So fill in the blanks. They'll do like gratitude segments where you will write down lists of things that you love or aspects of life that you love, and then kind of like go into detail about how you feel about that. Whether it could be a person, it could be a job, like some just anything in your life, and then they'll. So it's mostly I would say a journal, but also like they'll kind of guide you along the journal.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that sounds interesting. I feel like it's structured instead
Yeah,
of
it's
giving.
different than like a book, definitely.
I know like one thing that's hard for me, probably anybody, is just like actually giving yourself the time to, or like finding the time to
Yeah.
actually face that darkness
Hmm.
and kind of like sit in it. And with shadow work or like a journal like that, it's kind of like more organized. Like you can find the time more doing something that's more structured instead of just like not having anything that's organized
Hmm.
that you practice. I know I try to journal sometimes, but I feel like I don't do it enough. Only like once a week, right
Yeah.
before my weekly therapy appointment. I kind of just wait last minute to do that all because I'm kind of avoidant of things and like how I approach life. I kind of just like wait to the last minute to do stuff.
I do the same thing. it's it's hard. It's hard to want to face those types of things and like deal with your emotions. It's not always. It's not. It really ever fun or enjoyable per se. It can be like so healing and necessary, but it's not necessarily something that people just want to do because or are looking forward to doing big time because it's fun, you know, it's really challenging and sometimes it can be kind of dark and intimidating. But yeah, I mean, I think that's another thing too is like with relationships. I kind of realized, and I don't think it's because of this book or this journal or anything, but I realized that I'm actually not that like socially awkward. It's more so that I don't really know how to like approach people, you know, or like flirt. I don't know how to flirt. That's definitely something that I'm trying to work on. And I don't know. Like the thing is, the goal with something like this isn't to just solve all my problems. It's more so to just understand why I am anxious in particular situations and angry in others or sad and just how I'm triggered in a lot of scenarios, really.
Yeah, I can relate to that with feeling triggered with this season of how in the past I would be so complacent in life, and I feel like this fear of going back to like bad habits and just making it like uh, spiral or having a spiral out of control like it does sometimes. And there's this strange overlap between who I feel like I was in the past, like even as I mean, when I talk about the past, I think like just this year even,
Mm-hmm.
um, and like who I am presently, and kind of like how tripping on mushrooms kind of like shaped who I am now. And not just like that experience, but also just that experience as a whole, like climbing the mountain that we did together, and like going on a trip with my girlfriend after, and like the things that her and I have had to go through together this summer, like was very emotionally taxing, but it was something that was necessary for me because it forced me to face all the shit within me. Um, uh, Romantic relationships can be like a good reflection of
Mm-hmm.
you as a person, and like what your triggers are, and like things that you need to work on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I don't know if I remember where I was going with this, but the darkness kind of overcomes me sometimes, and I have a hard time being able to sit in it. And um, I honestly like really forgot where I was going with.
It's all good. um, but I like what you said about relationships because even though I'm not in one, I actually have kind of realized recently why sometimes I've wanted to avoid intimacy or I mean, there's a lot of reasons, like some maybe sexual and some maybe just fear, anxiety, obviously, but um, I had to look back in the past, and it's interesting because I look at a couple of things that happened in high school. Obviously, I don't have any attachment to like those people anymore, but both times where I would grow a sense of like feelings for someone and I felt like it might have been going somewhere, I got ghosted, right? So that left me with this stigma that towards those feelings of anytime I experience them, it's going to end poorly. I'm going to be abandoned. Um, and so it kind of creates that subconscious thought process of like, I might be not lovable in that sense. It's kind of hard to get over that, I would say. And so, like, since then, I haven't really been like chomping at the bits to go out and find a romantic partner or anything like that because that feeling is still there. And so I don't have like an exact answer as to how I might work with that, but I definitely need to. I need to delve into it and understand it a little bit better because there's definitely like a desire to want to experience some kind of like partnership with someone eventually. And so, yeah, bro. Actually, it's interesting. I was at a bar the other day, and I was this one girl approached me, and we started to talk a little bit. It was a sing and dance thing going on, like, and I couldn't really hear a whole lot of what she was saying because it was so loud. But eventually, I asked her to dance, so we started dancing and stuff. And um, afterwards, like, we were sitting there, and I had an opportunity to make some kind of a move, and I just completely folded, bro. I just completely caved in, and eventually I left, and I felt like, for lack of a better way to put it, I felt like a bitch. But you know, I kind of see it as there's some reasons to that, and also obviously it's just everyone probably experiences that. Like, you're in a situation where you can make a move or do something and you just fold. Um, but I also feel like I want to think about it more deeply and try and find like not just that I don't want to like overreact to that situation or beat myself up, but like why I'm really scared in those moments to do anything or to initiate anything. Um, and yeah, another example though. Just like how can I use this rather than be afraid or run from it? You know.
Yeah, it's interesting, like putting it in that context of trying to analyze it. I definitely don't do that enough. I know, like your story was reminding me of what I was trying to talk about earlier. Kind of like I don't remember quite where the trajectory where I was trying to take that conversation, but I do know like it was in relation to inaction and also like the shift of the season and how it reminds me of how I would be so complacent in the past and how I wasn't uh, particularly, or I didn't have a particularly good self esteem or um, like high self efficacy, but not but, and it's still kind of like that now. Um, I still struggle with those same issues. It's just a matter of like, okay, like what can I do about this, and like how can I help myself? I've developed some coping mechanisms, but this month has been like kind of a tough one for me, just because of the summer ending and kind of settling into my job role, which I can explain more later. But settling into that job role I have with all this pressure and trying to like bring in new organizations so I can like have more revenue coming my way with directing new programs. I can explain in more like context later, but things like that, and like also trying to get into the gym, and just also like the trauma of the fall time and like how I have all these negative associations. Like smoking weed is something for me that I have a very uh, negative association with. Watching football, honestly, is something I'm starting to have a very negative association with. Um, just things like that kind of would help me as like a form of escapism, or now things that like I see it for what it is. It's like kind of a form of escapism, and a part of me just like knows it's not really serving me anymore, but yet for some reason I still like keep it in my life. And it is that weird like cognitive dissonance where I'm trying to like smoking weed, for example, is something that I actually like have been smoking significantly less than like what I've smoked in the past, especially like around this time of year every year. Like I would smoke like 4 days a week, like 5 days a week, some weeks, which is like people listening to this video may who smoke weed may be like, oh, that's like not even that much, whatever. But, I mean, to me, I feel like it was a lot because of that association that I have with weed, and like my addiction from 5 years ago with the wax pen we would hit, which was, by the way, for anybody listening to this, like the context of that wax pen was how we were buying it for from somebody in high school, and they were mixing like jewel pod juice or fluid or whatever with the THC. So it was like that combination was getting me so high and addicted to it. But yeah, things like that, I would have a negative association with. I know football as of recently, like I just realized like the last 2 weeks, I felt like I wasted my time watching football. Like I could have just been doing something else, and just so boring watching 49ers lose. I was like, bro, like what am I doing? When like half the game is full of commercial breaks, it's just you're kind of just sitting there in that dead space, like on your phone, just waiting for the game to come back on. And it's like what is the point of this? So now I feel like there's things I could do that would help me more like emotionally. I feel like I've gone into like this rut with the cold weather kind of coming in now. I felt okay. let's backtrack to the beginning of this month since we're talking about the fall, right? How I felt about the fall, like these negative associations and these traumas, whatever. So the beginning of this month, I think I was just very exhausted from work and like could, my work is very active job, so like being on my feet all the time with the kids, coaching these programs, going to the gym and trying to keep up with running a few days a week just started to be exhausting in addition to all like the mental load of trying to find new organizations to bring in, trying to like handle this promotion and like all the pressure of honestly being under like a small business kind of like we're essentially a small business
Hmm.
what we are, and it's all just mentally tough. I'm a very like dark minded person, so there's a lot of work that I've had to do like some of these mornings or really these just like random times a day where I've had to just sit there and try to like figure out what's going on, and sometimes I put it off for too long, trying to figure out what's going on with me emotionally. There's a lot of shit I still need to process and make more positive associations with. Um, and with that exhaustion that I built up, I started just sleeping more. Right. I know you and we talked a while ago about how like we were getting up consistently early in the morning, and I kind of just stopped doing that, and now I've made it a habit of not doing that anymore. Um, so like with the cold weather coming back, I've had a hard time getting out of bed, so I kept sleeping in, and I got sick this weekend, and I've only gone to the gym like once in like the last 2 weeks now. I haven't gone on a run for like 4 weeks.
Oh wow.
I have a lot of. It's not like I don't see this all as like a like oh like poor me, like this sucks, whatever, like that's not how I'm doing it.
Right.
I feel like I used to like victimize myself, and a part of me still wants to do that because like I said, there's like this overlap of who I was before and who I am now, but I know like I'll bounce back. Like life is full of setbacks, and my setbacks aren't even really that significant anyways. I just need to get like going back on a good momentum train,
Hmm.
and like I just feel like I haven't been on like a good momentum train this month. Like
Yeah.
I just kind of like fizzled out and started feeling burnt out, and like all this negative energy that I've been harnessing has seemed to like compound, which is part of the reason why I've tried to make this video with you or to reach out, because these are themes like I wanted to talk about. I just
Hmm.
didn't know like how to go about it, how to address it all. But yeah, a lot of themes.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing is to be able to just talk about it and be aware of it. That's the most important thing. And it sounds like for you, it's been just kind of a tough transition from like summer to fall, from the weather getting colder, and especially all the things you've been through in the past, like at this time of year. Um, and for everyone, that can be challenging because whether or not we realize it, that there can be attachments to years past, to times in our past when a certain point comes up and comes around. Um, when I was like, I actually went through a pretty tough time when I was, I think I was like 15. So it's been a while, obviously, but I went through a time where like I was so young and hadn't really experienced any like hardship or that much. To be honest, I'm pretty fortunate with how I grew up. Um, but like my dad had come down with cancer at the time, and it was only stage one. Like he ended up being just fine, but I didn't really understand at the time. I was like, oh, cancer, like that's not good. And I had let me think at that time. Yeah, my grades were like very bad, like very bad, and I also had a crush on this one girl, and so my attention was more towards that and my dad, and also playing baseball, which was a big passion of mine. But eventually, my phone was taken away because my grades were so bad, and then because my grades were bad, also baseball was taken away. I was cut from the team, and so I felt like I had nothing left. And it was like the first time where I was really facing adversity. It seemed in my life, like it wasn't necessarily, the same as we might experience when we get older, but just being so young, I hadn't really ever faced like a true sense of darkness per se. And that time certainly still makes itself known occasionally. Like when this time of year comes around, maybe I'll get feelings of kind of depression or overwhelming anxiety, which is kind of similar to what I had back then. Um, Especially when you start to notice the weather getting cooler, the days getting shorter. But I think that's okay, because that's just, those are feelings from the past, those are experiences from the past, and um, you know, it's good, like I said, for you and for me and for everyone to be able to like say how you feel, how you've been doing, and actually articulate that. That's like the first step, in my opinion, towards finding like a spark or being productive, is at least being willing to admit it. That like, hey, I haven't been doing anything lately, or I've been lazy, I've been off. Even just being off or feeling off, like just don't run from that, like that's good to be able to talk about it. By the way, we only have 2 minutes left on this recording before we have to start a new one, but um, yeah, I mean, I think for me, like transitioning from summer to fall this year, it came with a little bit of a challenge, honestly, like just in terms of how I was feeling internally, a little bit anxious. Like it can be a time of year where I face that a lot, like a lot of anxiety, and I think part of it could stem from, I guess, the future, supposedly, of not really knowing, like, hey, where am I going? Like, what am I really doing? But I think that's good to think about that, because that's how we naturally are as humans. That's kind of what our anxiety can stem from, but also like trying to balance that out with accepting my humanity, with also trying to do grounding activities and try and remain present. And the thing is, if we think so much about the future and like all the stuff we want, but all the life that we want to live or whatever, then we don't get anything done in the present. So I think that's been a key emphasis too, is trying to explore my mind, explore myself, but also work on activities to like really just keep myself grounded and in the moment. Talking about grounding activities, and to kind of branch off of that, like the one thing or the few things that I think are helpful, at least personally, for that are showers. Like sometimes, I'd have a routine of taking morning showers and not really night showers. I only shower once in the day, but sometimes, like at night, if there's a lot on my mind, I feel like it's really helpful to just get in the shower and like use it as a method to clear my mind. And also, the water running down your body can feel very cleansing, and you're just cleaning yourself off. I mean, obviously, the main things people would think of would be like spending time in nature or meditation. I think night walks too, those can really tend to help. Just anything you can use to kind of either free your thoughts or be still, be here and be now. And it depends on kind of what it is that you're looking for. And also things that you maybe would have liked to do as a child can help a lot too. Like, I don't really do it anymore, but when I was a kid, I used to love to just draw, I don't know, like my favorite sports teams, or just like their logo or something like that. Just draw Spider-Man or things like that when I was a kid. And doing stuff like that, obviously writing's a big thing for me as well, but it can be very helpful because we kind of live in a world where it's always about the future and building towards what's next, and that's very important. It's essential, I would say, for sure, but you also kind of have to have a level of balance where it's, hey, like, all of that is great, but we can't forget the fact that all that happens is right here. Everything we want to make happen has to happen right here and right now in the moment. And sometimes doing activities like that can remind you of that, for sure. Just force you to stay here in the moment, which is so hard to do. it's so challenging to just like, I mean, we can't possibly always be just zen. You know, we can't. We can't.
Yeah. I think like something that has been hard for me to balance, like with staying present and everything, is just my job. And I feel like because of like the laziness I've had the last couple weeks and like getting sick this last weekend too, but more so just the laziness. I feel like I kind of like because I got so burnt out and everything, I got kind of like uh, complacent, comfortable, and my mind keeps wanting to go to that thought of like, oh, you're giving up, like you're giving up. Let's see, look at you, like you're in action, uh, you're incapable. All these things. That's the reason why you are not getting these things done. It's not like I even have a whole lot to do anymore. To be honest, I feel like a lot of what I spent my time doing was emails and like just getting like all my systems in order for what I'm doing, like trying to create like templates and contacting other like preschools and organizations to get them to respond to me. But like none of these emails worked.
Oh yeah.
I spent so much time doing that stuff, but none of them worked. And, now it's like up to me to take the action of calling or like doing in-person visits, and I've like taken action doing some of that stuff, but I also feel like I've not taken action, and some of my thoughts love to go down that like negative thinking process rabbit hole of like, oh, like, well, maybe I'm not good at my job, maybe like I am not capable of closing a deal and getting a new organization, like creating these self-fulfilling prophecies in my head. I'm trying to not let it get in my head. I think a part of it has to do with my OCD and everything, but trying like patient. I think that's the biggest thing is patience. I feel like that's a really large like spiritual test, and maybe not even just spirituality, but just like living the human experience, trying to be patient. But it's so incredibly difficult for me. And I notice myself giving into like these anxious habits that I have as a way to like distract myself from like that waiting process. Like, is this stuff ever going to happen? Am I going to fail? Blah blah blah. Um, I've developed these anxious habits of uh, like I check fantasy football like way too much,
I
like
do the same thing.
way too much. Like I think for me though, it's gone to the point where it's become like excessive because I use it as like a compulsive thing to like distract myself from anxiety. Um, one thing that what else did I do like that? I think just like trying to just like refresh my emails, my work emails, or even like my personal emails. I'll like refresh that sometimes like very shortly after I get up in the morning, and it's just a bad anxious habit. Something that I was doing, which thankfully I'm not really doing anymore, is how do I explain this? For some context, my job was trying to like emphasize getting Google reviews from parents
Hmm.
in like the programs that we coach, and like for some context to anybody that's still viewing this video this late, if you even are, which if you are, I appreciate it. But honestly, I don't really expect that many people to listen to this all the way through.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if you are, thank you. But for some context to give you a more of an understanding of what I do, I just got promoted to like area director and um, for my job, so I have like more of an administrative role and like responsibility of trying to build programs and like specific cities around me for their youth sports programs. That's what they are. And uh, anyways, like as area director, Like, where was I going with that? What was I saying before? I thought if I heard you correctly.
Well, you were talking about like having to like send out emails or get people involved and stuff like that.
Oh, um,
Like, or you're talking about like calls, right? You guys were going to
oh, Google reviews.
Google reviews, yeah.
That's right. So the parents in my classes, I'm trying to get them to leave Google reviews. I've taken a lot of action trying to do it, and I know like I run good programs, and like I know like I'm able to talk to parents too. I don't really like talk to parents like a whole lot, but I do it like just enough just to be like professional. Um, like some of the other directors in my company got in like an insane amount of Google reviews, and meanwhile I have like three,
Hmm.
and like it was just so discouraging to me, and I was starting to use this as like an anxious habit, like trying to refresh the Google page to see if like any new reviews came in, like doing that stuff like a couple times a day. um it it was starting to like be like a negative reinforcement almost, just um like trying to keep doing that to see like, oh, like if can I get this dopamine hit of like, oh, if I actually get a review. And then the last thing that I've been doing that I notice is an anxious habit is trying to look at the like roster numbers in some of my programs. So like let's say like one of my programs I have like 7 kids in, but like that's out of a maximum of 10. Like
Hmm.
I try to like go on that page and log in like almost every day. I try to like log into that page to see like, oh, did the roster numbers go up?
Hmm.
It's like I feel like I'm seeking it out for the wrong intention, even though like I know I'm good at my job and I like my job and I like giving these kids these experiences. I feel like um I haven't I feel like I've been questioning my intentions too much recently, and once I start doing that, I start going down like another like spiral, and it all just kind of like compounds like everything that I've been talking about already, with like the laziness and not going to the gym, or just like the laziness in
Yeah.
general, not being able to get up on time, and then like everything with work and um, just these negative um, thought patterns I put myself in, and then like the kind of like compulsive habits I have. I just noticed myself doing this stuff like almost as like a dopamine thing, and I don't find it to be good for me, and I can feel that. But at the same time, I I'm in this rut, and I'm trying to like get out of it, and not be have my mental health be so dependent on like, oh, our parents reviewing me, or are my program numbers high enough, or am I doing a good enough job like trying to get organizations to want to like have programs with us. I'm also just not really like a salesperson, like, so I don't know like the best approach on going about this, but I do have like two school or one like the Boys and Girls Club, number one, and then I have this school um from like around where we live in Walnut Creek that wants to work with me, and um, I keep having this thought in the back of my head that's been bothering me all day, which I might as well just open up about. Um, like I'm trying not to attach myself about it and like try to freak out about it. I feel like it comes from a place of my OCD. Friday, I went to like a community event for this school that I'm talking about, and like the guy, like the school administrator that I've been in communication with, it seems like super cool with me, and he was like dabbing me up, like giving me like handshakes like throughout the whole event, and like he was like, "Yeah, man, thank you for coming out." He said that like multiple times, and it's like, "Oh, like I'll send. I got you a meeting with the principal next Friday, and like I'll send you an email on Monday." And like I'm like checking my phone throughout the day, trying to see if this fool emailed me, but he hasn't emailed me, and it's like just that thought in the back of my head. I'm like, bro, what if he doesn't want to work with me? Like, what if
Yeah.
I'm not able to like get this organization, and then like I have no programs next year, and I'm like in this huge hole, and like I it goes down to like the worst possible outcome.
Hmm.
Like fuck, like what if this doesn't go as planned? I can't get that fucking meeting. Oh my god,
Yeah.
like
I think it sounds like, at least from when you're talking about like getting reviews or checking the roster and constantly wanting that dopamine, it's so like almost identical, at least in my experience, to like waking up in the morning. And I don't check my phone right away, but if you like wake up in the morning, check Instagram. Oh, did I get a new message? Did I get a new like? Did I get a new follower? And like seeking that validation through something like social media, which is something I've done in the past, definitely. Like even on this channel before, maybe not as much lately, but did we get a new subscriber? Did we get a new comment? And like when you don't, you can almost feel a little bit invalidated, and so you start to question what you're doing and who you are as a person, and whether or not you're putting in the right work for you, for your job, right? And um, I can definitely understand that, because I don't know, like how I put this, like just being seeing that, especially in the day we live, just like how much online everything is and socialized on a digital platform everything can be, when you don't get the interaction you might have desired, or uh, you don't get that next um, kid on the roster, right? Or like if you don't get the next follower or whatever, you can just feel a little bit discouraged by it, and question overly, I would say, question yourself. And I think that's where you can almost be your own validator in a sense. You know, from what it sounds like, obviously I'm not working with you, I'm not on the job with you, but I know you're very passionate about it, and obviously I can tell you're good just at your job in essence, right? With just with kids and stuff like that. um, Way better than I would be. Like, I'm not saying I'm awful with kids, but usually in like leading a big group of people like that, I'm not as much of a vocal person or a out there person, so it can be a little challenging. So I don't know. I mean, you got to also keep in mind that you're still very, at least in totality, early into working too. You know, at least this job. Um, so I mean, you would know way better than me, but at least from my perspective, it seems like you are on the right path at the very least. And that may not necessarily, that's not going to imply that you're doing perfect, right? But I do think that from what it seems like, if you just stay on the path and stay committed to it, then things will play out. I think they'll play out the best they can, for sure.
thank you for saying that. I've just been so discouraged with all that because a lot of it's just my job. I feel like has been the biggest like reflection of my own self esteem,
Hmm.
like how I've struggled with that for so long, and uh, I just feel like this that one school I was talking to, like that one guy that I was talking to you is specifically about like I need to be more patient. These
Hmm.
things take time, but I'm just like, oh, like if he doesn't get back to me by Wednesday, I'm like, oh my God, like I'm about to call him. And what if he's like, oh, I'll email you, and then he never emails me back, and I'm like, and it's just I don't know. I feel like a part of like my success right now is a little bit dependent on like these two like big themes I have like just looming like in the air. It's just a matter of like, can I get can I submit a proposal to them for a program and then get it approved and like be able to actually run it? It's just I'm so close.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know, like I was trying to touch on earlier, like patience, but like these things take so much time because there's so many like heads involved, like with this approval process, especially because it has to do with like kids or like some type of education. And
Hmm.
there's so many heads involved. Like I don't know how much time this stuff is really supposed to take. Like nobody's really like told me
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, this is how much time it takes, or like this is your like projected success rate based on like my experience. Like I haven't really like heard that from any of like the people that are like above me.
Hmm.
in terms of like position on the job.
Hmm.
I don't know, like I can't be so hard on myself, and I try to tell myself that. At the same time, I still like really hard on myself.
Yeah.
I just expect like the worst possible. Fuck, bro. Like I'm not gonna get this done. I'm gonna be in the worst hole ever. Like next year, I'm gonna have like no. I won't be working enough. Like it. I don't know. I think you know what I need to is I need to actually work on my LinkedIn account, build that up, and start like setting myself up for other opportunities.
Hmm. I honestly think I should do the same, exact same. I made
I
my account, but I didn't do anything with it, really.
Yeah, I have an account too, but I've barely done anything. I just need to set myself up for more opportunities. So I'm not like so afraid, but I also have to like embrace that fear and not really like let it affect me so much.
Hmm.
Like at the end of the day, it's not like I'm gonna die because of
Yeah.
something like this. Like I'm relatively like in a safe place in my life.
Hmm.
I like I said, like working my job is a reflection of my self esteem, and I feel like for a long time I never like followed things through, and I'm trying to do that here. Like I'm trying to follow things through, but it's been tough for me to maintain my faith because the process is taking so long. But the reality is, I've only been doing like what I've been doing for not even 2 months. I don't think.
Yeah.
So to think about it, like let's say like 1.75 months, like that's how long I've been working on this, or even like a month and a half. Like
Hmm.
that's barely any time.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think it's good though to like expect a lot of yourself, and with that comes like being hard on yourself. Like there's a certain extent I think where you certainly have to like ease off the gas pedal and like validate yourself a little bit. But I have felt like being hard on myself works in certain situations. You want to expect a lot of yourself. You want to work hard and move forward. And that's the thing about being humans is that like we're always on the quest to somehow evolve, right? Of like we don't want to be complacent. We want to do something to like enhance or move forward. And I think just being patient, it's hard, bro. It's hard, but like being there for like not even 2 months, dude, like working that job, I definitely think patience would go a long way. And I also think like personally, one thing that been trying to work on is like gratitude through affirmation, and like actually not just thinking like, yeah, you know, I'm grateful to be alive, but like saying that like I'm grateful for my friends, my family, I'm grateful for my job, I'm grateful for the roof over my head, and like saying that consistently every day, I think it really does help, because sometimes we kind of overlook those things, like having a bed to sleep in. There's people out in this world that don't, or like having, you know, a stable internet connection, having a job, having a car, and all these things. Like those definitely help with mental health too, for sure, because that can definitely be something that, you know, we're thinking about the things that we don't have or the things that we haven't done are failures, but kind of not really as much the things that we do have. So
and also just like the fear of uncertainty
yeah.
and or actions of like that you haven't even taken yet.
Uh-huh. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I know like I feel like because I know our like main theme to this conversation has been like that darkness, like with the shift that we've been going through, and where was I going with that? We were talking about what again? Oh, resentment is something that I am very easily somebody who becomes resentful. So if I don't like keep myself in check with like positive things, I quickly go down to like uh, almost like this narcissistic tendency of mine internally anyways. Like I don't externally like um project it, but internally like I feel like I like to blame other people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or like criticize the way things are being done. So like, something in my job, I could be like extra annoyed by something that maybe like ordinarily like annoy me, but extra annoyed with like somebody like, let's say the owner. I like, oh, maybe I don't like the way he's doing things, or maybe he just whines too much about the numbers, or he doesn't fully understand. And I mean, maybe it's normal for people to complain about their job or their bosses or whatever. But I don't want to be like much of a complainer, or somebody who just like finds myself within that resentment and kind of just
Mm-hmm.
sits there, doesn't really do anything about it. Because sometimes they can like seep into other areas of my life of like maybe like being resentful of my brother for like absolutely no reason, or like my even my own girlfriend, uh,
Mm-hmm.
or my mom, like it could just be like anybody's random.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like you were saying, practicing like gratitude is something that like I've definitely like have worked on more recently, doing more like affirmations and stuff, but it's not a daily thing that I do. I think that's like a something that I can practice more and get it to more of a habit. It's just, man, dude, like I know things are supposed to be uncomfortable. Life is not supposed to be easy. You have to do things like this to like keep yourself in check.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like one of the things, like one of the biggest things that I learned from our mushroom experience is like I'm not going to get my hand held all the way through, like I'm my own man, but um, fully embracing that has been extremely difficult for me because of how I was used to approaching life before that. Um, so it's just like this. I was doing so well, it seemed like, but then all of a sudden I've kind of like been in this rut. Like I've like reiterated more than a couple times already. And like I don't have this pessimistic view on it. So, in a way I've made like this progress, but I definitely feel like that depression kind of like in the back of my head,
Mm-hmm.
like what if I just gave into this more, maybe a worse habit, start like I think something like the last couple of days I just had like more of like this like demon urge to want to like jack off. I think just being sick and being inside and
Yeah.
not really doing much of anything for 2 straight days, I just had like this demon urge of like lust within me, which is like one of the biggest things I feel like that I was trying to like battle mentally and emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
like which is what goes into like all the issues I've had in my relationship and like how I've overcome that with my girlfriend. But it still gets to me. Like that's a fear that I have, a darkness I have. It's like I feel like I'm capable of going back to like negative, lustful behaviors because it was kind of like an addiction to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
But like I know that's not me anymore. So I was like, I'm not going to like be jacking off. Like there's nothing any purpose behind it. Like I was trying to like do this. I know maybe it's like TMI or whatever, but like I was trying to like shower, take a hot shower and stretch after, and like because I was feeling like so like horny, I was just like, oh, like what if I, maybe like just try to like do this as more of like a meditative thing, like stretched out, like with no clothes on, and just try to like take it easy or whatever. But as like I got closer and closer to trying to like make that decision, at the end of it, I just like really thought like is this like necessary for me? I feel like I wasted a lot of time like trying to build up to this,
Mm-hmm.
building up to like that release point. I feel
Yeah.
like I wasted a lot of time. So I ultimately like I didn't do it at the end of the day, which honestly like I feel good about that. But at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, but like I wasted so much time thinking about it.
Yeah.
Uh, like like I don't think it would be a bad thing if I did like decide to do that, especially in the context that I was under like thinking of doing it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But like, nevertheless, I feel like it would have just triggered me. Like, oh, I just jumped off. What if I'm like giving in to like just like these tempting feelings again? And I'm going back down this road of comfort, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I, it's all like in relation to that darkness and this shift to this time of years, like experiencing like because like in previous years, I feel like I had those bad habits of like jacking off and like ever since I was an adolescent, like it was a habit of mine to like look at like images of women online. So like that wasn't a good habit, and I was doing it for so long that like try to overcome all that all at once. Like it's a fear of mine, like because like I'm capable of it. You know, it's a fear of mine, but I know like it's something that I'm not going to go back to. There's just other things like other more work that I need to do. I know something that Angela brought up to me and my girlfriend is like trying to learn more about like women's perspective on like sexualization and objectification, which I think will help for sure. But I also think I need to work more on like my thoughts towards things. Just kind of like change my thoughts or find like a good focal point if like I find myself bothered by like just talks about sex in general. I mean, like we're like sexual beings anyway, so like I shouldn't feel guilty about having like some random thought about sex or like
Mm-hmm.
sex. But at the same time, like I just feel like indulging in like the thoughts um can almost be like injuring to me because like lust is such a big issue for me. Like it's lust is always something that I want to channel towards my girlfriend, like trying to channel all that to her. So I mean that all like relates to like that shadow work and everything. Um, um, like I'm capable of it. It's within me and something I have to embrace, but um, I can channel it to like positive things with real intimacy.
Mm-hmm. And lust certainly can find a way to humble you. Definitely me. I think the thing I've realized is like, regardless of the job that I've been able to do to like stray away from porn, indulging in like an over excess of it, I'm still capable, of going back to it. It doesn't mean I will. It doesn't mean I'm going to, but I'm capable. And so it's kind of like accepting that the demon, so to speak, is kind of there, which is essentially just lust. And yeah, definitely, I think what you mentioned, your girlfriend told you, like the objectification of women, like I have never wanted to do that, but at times in the past, maybe I have. Maybe I have looked at them for the purpose of just their body, the image of the woman's body, and that's something that like I don't love to admit, but I think it's something that's just there, and I kind of have to accept it. But also, like, yeah, looking at it from the woman's perspective and trying to view them as human beings, like that's a hard thing for a lot of men to do, and like, you know, sometimes even still, bro, like looking at images of women online, I will do that occasionally, and I don't think it's like that. I don't think it's excessive in any way. To be honest, I wouldn't even consider it an unhealthy habit because I don't indulge in it like every day or like a lot. But you'll stumble upon one, and I'll maybe jack off occasionally. But it's not like an unhealthy habit, I wouldn't say. And it's just one of these things I have to keep in check. Of like, I don't want this to be something I'm overindulging in. I don't want to be objectifying women and all of that. And because, yeah, bro, I mean, like for me, obviously, I mean, I've talked about it a lot on this channel and just to you and just in my life, like the sexual things that I've been through and trying to heal from that, grow from that. And I think I've done a really good job over the past year of being disciplined, being aware, and awareness comes with the fact that, like, hey, I'm probably going to have an urge not just to masturbate, but to watch porn occasionally, or if I'm sitting here bored, indulge into something that I know I'll probably regret if I do. And I'd say, at least more often than not, I have most certainly been able to uh, kind of say no, to at least be like, all right, this isn't what I need to do. This is what I'm going to do, right? Because it's not going to help me in any way. It's only going to make things worse, or put me back to square one, or to a place where I don't want to be. And yeah, I mean, sex is certainly something, especially, like, I think as we get into this time of year, the cravings can get more intensified. To be honest, one thing that can kind of get me on that wave is just purely boredom, like sitting there with nothing to do. So it's like, well, why not? But I think that's where it's like you kind of have to channel that energy a little bit, um, which I do believe you can with sexual energy, put it into something more positive, even if it's like very light a workout. Even if it's like 10 push-ups, 30 sit-ups, like a couple pull-ups, and then just like a light little jog in place. Just get the body moving around, get it flowing around, and not stagnant and so, like, just consumed by, like, the sexual images. But also, you don't want to deprive yourself of that either, because you are human. And I'm talking not just like to you, but to me and everybody, whoever might be watching this, um, because, like, you are human. And I think for me, just being single too, like, I'm trying to, like, get to a point where that energy is something that is mainly um, attended to with an actual loving person, a woman, like an actual relationship of some kind, rather than just like the idea of a quick gratification, or instant gratification, or just a lust and a lustful hookup or things like that, which is something that I've had a desire to do in the past. And um, like, it takes a long time to understand it, especially because we have these feelings when we're so young and naive to it in our adolescence. And it's like when you get into it, your adulthood, you all of a sudden are like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't be doing this as much. And you have to kind of find ways to work with it, understand it. And that's kind of been the theme for me of this video, is working with everything that I'm feeling and understanding it, rather than trying to avoid it, you know?
Yeah, I'm trying to do the same thing with like that fear of lust, and like when I do feel like sexual or like lustful, like, you know, I don't like I really like don't feel that way about anybody else other than my girlfriend. But like, just like the feeling of like tension that you feel when like you haven't like had like any sexual release for like a week or so, like
Yeah.
maybe for a week, like you just have that feeling of like, oh, like you just want to like have sex. And it's not like that's directed towards anybody specifically, but it's just that feeling that can be dangerous if you like follow it to like something negative.
Right. Yeah.
And like for me, like I know like, you said getting up and moving, I think is like a good practical way to like distract yourself from that. I know definitely like if you're like in bed in the morning having a hard time getting up, like you're probably way more likely to get into some compulsive sexual habit, like
Hmm.
um doing or like being that lazy, not being able to get out of bed. So like in that context, I agree. Like okay, like try to get yourself up and moving. But I also think like just changing like your thoughts around it. For me, what helped me is just kind of like talking myself down like intellectually from the behavior of jacking off, because like I don't see any purpose or like intention behind it other than just to really pleasure myself, and that's it. And um, I I try to like honestly like counteract my animal brain with like the intellectual, more like developed parts of my brain and be like, what's the purpose of this action? Is this really useful or necessary for me? I really don't feel like it is.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it too, because sometimes, at least in my experience, when I have those sort of feelings, it can be hard to just objectively analyze them and like think about them. You kind of just feel them sometimes, and just kind of either give into them or not. At least that's how I've been at times. And yeah, I mean, this video too is coming to an end here, but uh, I don't know. Do you think you have anything more to say in another one? Because I mean, I feel like we got some good thoughts out.
No, I'm good.
Yeah, for sure. But it's been good, a good talk, bro. It's good to hear from you, because it's been a little while. So hope you feel better soon for sure too.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like relatively like fine. Could have probably even gone to work today, but I'm just trying to like take it easy.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I mean, also you don't want to get anyone sick.
Yeah, I mean that. I mean, I feel like we covered a lot of like what we deal with in terms of the darkness. I know, like, I definitely opened up a lot about my self-esteem issues. Like, yeah, a lot of it's like a cycle with like my self-esteem that factors into something else that factor in like those sexual fears and then back into like the fear of failure and like it was all
It's all connected, kind of.
yeah. But anyways, good video. If you listen this long, you are a champion.
Legend.
Absolute champion because wow, we have a lot to say.
So I guess